The survey ship called the Gentle Dawn had been traveling through the outer edges of the galaxy for almost 3 years. The crew was tired but excited. They had mapped over 200 star systems and discovered 17 new planets that could support life. It was good work, important work, and Navigator was proud to be part of it. Was a young, only 40 years old by his people's counting. He had 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on his face, and his skin was a soft shade of purple that darkened when he was nervous. Right now, his skin was very dark indeed. "Commander," he called out across the bridge. His voice had a musical quality to it, like 2 notes playing at once. "I am detecting something strange in Sector 79. There is a vessel out there, but it does not match anything in our records." Commander rose from her command chair. She was old for nearly 300 years, and she had seen many strange things in her long career. Her body was tall and thin, with 4 arms that she kept folded against her chest when she was thinking. She walked over to Station and looked at the readings on his screen. "Show me," she said simply. Adjusted the sensors and brought up a detailed image of the object. It was clearly a spacecraft, but its design was unlike anything they had ever seen. It was boxy and angular, with none of the smooth curves that most spacefaring species preferred. Large sections of the hull were covered in what appeared to be protective plating, thick and heavy. Strange symbols were painted on the side, letters that the computer could not translate. "The ship is approximately 300 meters long," reported. "It appears to be drifting without power. I am detecting very faint life signs inside, perhaps 12 to 15 biological entities." "Can you identify the species?" His fingers moved across his control panel. They did not have fingers like most species. Instead, they had long, flexible tendrils covered in a thin membrane that could sense vibrations and temperature changes. It made them excellent at operating delicate equipment. "I cannot identify the species," admitted, "but I have analyzed the atmospheric composition inside the vessel. The results are concerning." Leaned closer, "Explain." "The internal atmosphere contains 21% oxygen. The pressure is approximately 100. The gravity simulation appears to be set at nearly 10 meters per second squared." The bridge fell completely silent. Every member of the crew understood what those numbers meant. They had all studied the classification system used by the Galactic Council to categorize planets. Class I worlds were gentle places, with low gravity and calm atmospheres. Class II worlds were more challenging, with stronger weather and more dangerous wildlife. But Class III worlds were something else entirely. Class III worlds were called. They were planets where everything seemed designed to kill. The gravity was crushing. The atmosphere was corrosive. The weather was violent. The wildlife was aggressive. The very bacteria and viruses that lived on such worlds were lethal to most other forms of life. No sensible species evolved on a Class III world. The few that did were considered extremely dangerous by the rest of the galaxy. "A species," whispered. Her skin had gone pale, a sign of fear among her people. "Here in the outer rim." "What should we do, Commander?" asked Security Chief from his station near the back of the bridge. He was a large, muscular by their standards, with darker purple skin and a deep voice. His job was to protect the crew from threats, and right now he was very concerned about the threat drifting in the void ahead of them. "Thought carefully. The Galactic Council had strict protocols for dealing with unknown species, especially those from. The safest option would be to retreat immediately and call for a military escort. But something made her hesitate. "The life signs," she said slowly. "You said they are faint." "Very faint," confirmed. "The beings appear to be in some kind of reduced metabolic state. They are alive, but barely." "They are dying," realized. "Whatever happened to their ship, they are dying out there in the cold and the dark." "All the more reason to leave them alone," argued. "Dead cannot threaten anyone." "But we do not let beings die when we can save them," replied firmly. "That is the first principle of the Exploratory Corps. We render aid to those in need, regardless of species or origin." "Commander, with respect, that principle was written before we knew could achieve. These beings come from a world that should have killed them." The fact that they survived long enough to build ships means they are more dangerous than we can imagine. Was quiet for a long moment. She looked at the image of the alien vessel on the screen, dark and silent and alone. She thought about the beings inside, whoever they were, waiting for a rescue that might never come. And she made her decision. "Contact the Galactic Council," she ordered. "Request guidance on how to proceed, but prepare a boarding party. If the Council gives us permission, we are going to investigate that ship." The message was sent through the quantum communication network that connected all the major civilizations of the galaxy. It traveled faster than light, bouncing through relay stations across thousands of light years, until it reached the Great Council Chamber on the planet Prime. There, it was received by High Arbiter himself. Was not a biological being. He was a crystalline, a species that had evolved from mineral formations on a world where the conditions were just right for rocks to become alive. His body was made of thousands of tiny crystals arranged in a vaguely humanoid shape, and he glowed with a soft inner light that changed color depending on his mood. Right now, that light was flickering between blue and orange, a sign of deep concern. He read the message from the gentle Dawn 3 times before responding. "Commander," he said, his voice resonating through multiple frequencies at once. "You are certain of these atmospheric readings?" "We have them 4 times, High Arbiter," replied through the quantum link. "There is no doubt the vessel contains beings from a Class III world." "Do you have any indication of which world specifically?" "Our science officer believes she has identified the planet of origin. It is a small rocky world in the Orion Spur, approximately 27,000 light-years from the galactic center. The natives call it Earth." Searched his vast memory banks. He was 9,000 years old, one of the oldest beings in the known galaxy, and he had accumulated a tremendous amount of knowledge over his long existence. He found the file on Earth and reviewed it quickly. The planet was indeed a Class III, one of the most extreme ever. It had a thick atmosphere full of corrosive oxygen. Its surface was covered in liquid water, a substance that was poisonous to many species. It had massive storms, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and a magnetic field that bombarded the surface with radiation. The wildlife was aggressive and varied, ranging from microscopic organisms that could kill with a single touch to massive predators that could tear through metal. And yet somehow intelligent life had evolved there. A species called humans had risen to dominance on this terrible world, and against all odds, they had begun reaching for the stars. "Commander," said slowly, "I must be honest with you. Class III species are exceedingly rare in the galaxy. Most of them destroy themselves before they ever achieve. Their aggression, their biological imperatives, their constant struggle for survival, all of these factors typically lead to extinction. In 9,000 years of recorded galactic history, we have encountered only 3 species. 2 of them were contained in isolated regions of space where they could not threaten others. The 3rd was eliminated when it became clear they intended to conquer everything they encountered." "You are saying these humans might be dangerous," said. "I am saying they are almost certainly dangerous, but I am also saying that we know very little about them. Our only data comes from long-range observations made centuries ago. We have never made direct contact." "Then perhaps this is an opportunity," suggested. "A chance to learn about them, to understand them." Was quiet for a long moment, his crystals flickering rapidly as he considered the situation. Finally, he reached a decision. "You have permission to investigate," he said. "Board the vessel, assess the condition of the beings inside. If they are truly dying, you may render whatever aid you can. But, Commander, I must warn you to exercise extreme caution. If these humans show any sign of hostility, you are to withdraw immediately. And if they prove to be a genuine threat to galactic security, you are authorized to summon the Purification Fleet." Felt a chill run through her body. The Purification Fleet was the Galactic Council's ultimate weapon, a force designed to eliminate entire species if they proved too dangerous to coexist with. The fact that was mentioning it meant he considered the situation very serious indeed. "I understand, High Arbiter," she said. "We will proceed with caution." "Good luck, Commander, and may the stars guide your path." The boarding party assembled in the Gentle Dawn's shuttle bay had chosen her team carefully. Science officer would analyze any technology they encountered. Medical specialist would assess the condition of the beings inside. Security chief would provide protection, though hoped his weapons would not be necessary. And herself would lead the team, taking personal responsibility for whatever happened. They all wore full environmental suits, bulky constructions that completely enclosed their bodies and provided their own atmosphere. The suits were necessary because they could not survive in the conditions inside the alien vessel. The high gravity would strain their bodies. The oxygen-rich atmosphere would damage their tissues. The temperature, according to the sensors, was far below the freezing point of water, which meant it was actually quite comfortable by standards, but still required protection. "Everyone check your equipment," ordered. "We do not know what we will find over there. Be prepared for anything." "I have studied the external design of the vessel," reported. She was young, even younger than, but brilliant. Her specialty was the study of alien machines. "The hull appears to be made of steel alloys with some kind of ceramic coating for heat resistance. The design is primitive by our standards, but quite sophisticated for a species that has only been spacefaring for a short time." "How short?" asked. "Based on our records, humans first achieved powered flight approximately 150 of their years ago. They reached their moon about 50 years after that. This vessel represents perhaps 70 years of additional development. In galactic terms, they are infants." "Infants who built a ship capable of traveling between stars," observed. He was the oldest member of the team besides, a calm and thoughtful being with a gentle manner. "That is impressive for any species, let alone one from. It is also concerning," countered. "Rapid technological development often indicates a species driven by competition and conflict. Peaceful species tend to advance more slowly because they have no urgent need for new weapons or defenses." "We should not judge them before we meet them," said firmly. "Whatever their nature, they are in distress. Our first duty is to help them if we can." The shuttle detached from the Gentle Dawn and crossed the short distance to the alien vessel. Up close, the ship looked even more battered than it had from a distance. Scorch marks covered large sections of the hull. Several panels were missing, exposing the structure beneath. One of the large engines at the rear was clearly damaged, the metal twisted and blackened as if by an explosion. "There," said, pointing at a rectangular section of the hull. "That appears to be an airlock. I believe I can interface with the control panel and open it remotely." "Do it," ordered. Transmitted a series of signals to the alien ship. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the outer door of the airlock began to move. It slid open with a grinding sound that was audible even through the vacuum of space, transmitted through the hull of the shuttle. "The mechanism is damaged but functional," reported. "We can proceed." The shuttle maneuvered into position, and the team crossed over to the alien vessel. The artificial gravity inside was indeed much stronger than they were used to, and felt her body strain under the pressure. Her suit's mechanical systems compensated automatically, providing support for her limbs, but it was still uncomfortable. The airlock interior was dark except for small emergency lights that glowed a dim red. Examined the inner door and found a manual release mechanism. With some effort, she was able to open it, and the team stepped into the alien ship. The corridor beyond was narrow and low-ceilinged by standards. The walls were plain gray metal, decorated only with occasional signs bearing unreadable text and symbols. Pipes and cables ran along the ceiling, exposed and utilitarian. Everything about the design spoke of a species that valued function over form, practicality over beauty. "The atmosphere is stable," reported, checking his sensors. "Temperature is -15 degrees by their scale. The beings must have lowered it deliberately to preserve themselves." "What is the normal temperature for their species?" asked. "Based on our records of they prefer temperatures between 15 and 25 degrees. The current temperature would cause serious harm if they were not in some kind of protective state." They moved deeper into the ship, their boots clicking against the metal floor. Kept his weapon ready, scanning every shadow for threats, but the vessel appeared completely still. No movement, no sound, nothing but the occasional flicker of emergency lights. They passed through what appeared to be a common area, with tables and chairs bolted to the floor and a large screen mounted on one wall. The screen was dark, but was able to access the ship's computer system through a nearby terminal. "I am attempting to translate their language," she said, her tendrils moving rapidly over the alien keyboard. "Their writing system is quite simple, using only 26 symbols combined in various patterns. The computer system is also straightforward, based on binary logic." "Can you access their records?" asked. "I believe so. Give me a moment." Worked in silence for several minutes, her natural gift for languages allowing her to decode the alien text far faster than any machine. Finally, she looked up with a troubled expression. "I have found their mission logs," she said. "The vessel is called the Horizon's Edge. It was sent to investigate a gravitational anomaly near the edge of their solar system. The crew consists of 14 individuals, all members of an organization called NASA." "What happened to them?" "There was an accident during their transit. One of the engines exploded, causing a cascade of system failures. They lost their primary power supply and most of their life support capabilities. The commander, a male called Daniel Hayes, made the decision to place the crew in induced hypothermia rather than allow them to starve or suffocate." "Induced hypothermia," repeated. "They deliberately lowered their own body temperature to slow their metabolism. That is a risky procedure even for a species." According to the logs, they had no other choice. Captain Hayes estimated that they had enough emergency power to maintain the hypothermic state for approximately 3 of their years. After that, the power would fail, and they would die in their sleep. "How long ago was this?" asked. Checked the timestamp on the logs. "Almost 2 of their years. If we had not found them, they would have less than 1 year remaining." Felt something shift in her heart. She had come to this ship expecting to find monsters, dangerous predators from a world of death. Instead, she was finding beings who had faced impossible odds and chosen hope over despair. They had not given up, even when giving up would have been the rational choice. They had decided to wait, to trust that somehow, against all probability, help would come. And now help had come. "Take me to them," she said quietly. "Take me to the crew." The medical bay was located near the center of the ship, protected by thick walls and heavy doors. Inside, the 14 human beings lay on simple beds arranged in 2 rows. They were covered in thin blankets and connected to various machines that monitored their vital signs. The temperature was even lower here, cold enough that frost had formed on some surfaces. Walked slowly between the rows, examining each being in turn. They were smaller than she had expected, most of them only about 2 meters tall. Their bodies were soft and fragile-looking, with no natural armor or weapons visible. Their faces had 2 eyes set close together, pointing forward like predators, but there was nothing threatening about them in their current state. They looked peaceful, almost childlike. "The one on the end is Captain Hayes," said, pointing to a bed near the back. "According to the records, he is 43 years old by their counting. He was an experienced astronaut and commander before being assigned to this mission." Approached the captain's bed and looked down at him. He was a male of average size, with short dark hair that was starting to turn gray at the edges. His face was lined, worn by years of responsibility and stress. Even unconscious, there was something authoritative about him, something that suggested he was used to being in charge. "The youngest member of the crew is here," said from across the room. He was standing beside a bed near the entrance, looking down at a small figure with an expression of concern. "Her name is Lucy Marsh. She is only 19 years old. According to the medical records, she was a trainee assigned to this mission as part of her education." Went a look at the young human. Lucy Marsh was small even by human standards, with pale skin and dark hair that had been cut short, probably for practical reasons. Her face was round and soft, still carrying the traces of childhood. It was hard to imagine such a fragile being surviving on a. "The logs mention something about her," said, reading from her scanner. "In the weeks before they initiated the hibernation protocol, Captain Hayes gave his food rations to Lucy Marsh. He wanted to make sure she was as strong as possible before the long sleep. He weakened himself to keep her alive. Why would he do that? Asked. Despite his suspicion of, he sounded genuinely curious. Because she was the youngest, answered. Because she had the most life ahead of her. Because protecting the vulnerable is what good leaders do. She looked at directly. Does that sound like the behavior of a monster to you? Did not answer, but his grip on his weapon loosened slightly. Can we save them? Asked. The medical specialist considered the question carefully. Their physiology is very different from ours. They are carbon-based, like us, but their biochemistry uses different processes. However, the basic principles should be the same. If we can stabilize their temperature and provide them with appropriate nutrition and atmosphere, they should recover. Then that is what we will do. Activated her communicator and contacted the Gentle Dawn. Prepare the medical facilities. We are bringing 14 beings aboard. They require a high oxygen atmosphere, strong gravity, and temperatures between 15 and 25 degrees. Can you accommodate that? It will be difficult, Commander, replied. Such conditions are dangerous for our own crew. We would need to isolate an entire section of the ship. Then isolate it. These beings have been waiting for rescue for almost 2 years. We will not fail them now. The transfer took several hours. Each human had to be moved carefully, their hibernation pods disconnected from the ship's failing systems and connected to portable units that would keep them stable during the journey. Supervised every step, monitoring vital signs and adjusting settings as needed. As they worked, continued to explore the alien ship, cataloging its technology and downloading its records. What she found painted a picture of a species that was resourceful, creative, and remarkably resilient. Their engineering is fascinating, she told during a brief break. They do not have access to many of the materials we take for granted, so they have developed alternative solutions. Their engines, for example, use a combination of chemical propulsion and nuclear reactions. Primitive by our standards, but ingenious given their limitations. What about weapons? Asked. They have some. Small arms for personal defense and a few larger systems mounted on the hull. But the weapons are minimal compared to the scientific equipment. This ship was built for exploration, not warfare. That does not mean the species is peaceful, pointed out. It only means this particular ship was not designed to fight. True, admitted, but look at this. She showed them a section of the ship's computer that contained entertainment media, music, literature, visual recordings. They brought these things with them on their journey. Songs, stories, pictures of their families, and would a purely aggressive species waste precious cargo space on such things? Had no answer for that. Finally, all 14 humans were safely aboard the Gentle Dawn. They were placed in a specially prepared section of the medical bay, where the atmosphere had been adjusted to match their needs. The gravity was still lower than they were used to, but believed they would adapt quickly once they woke. The awakening process began the next day. Had studied human biology extensively using the records from their ship. He knew that the hypothermia had been induced using a combination of drugs and temperature reduction, and he had synthesized compounds that should reverse the effect safely. One by one, the humans were given the treatment and allowed to slowly warm up. The first to wake was a female named Maria. She was 35 years old, a lieutenant in their navy and the ship's chief engineer. Her eyes opened slowly, unfocused at first, then gradually becoming alert. She saw the unfamiliar ceiling above her and the strange equipment surrounding her, and she immediately tried to sit up. Easy, said, gently pressing her back down. He had activated a translation device that converted his harmonics into sounds she could understand. You are safe. You are among friends, but you have been unconscious for a long time and your body needs time to recover. Maria stared at him with wide eyes, understood that he must look very strange to her, tall and thin, with purple skin and 4 eyes and tendrils instead of fingers. He tried to make his posture as non-threatening as possible. What are you? She whispered. Her voice was rough from disuse. I am a medical specialist from the planet. My ship found yours drifting in space. We brought you aboard to save your lives. The others, the rest of the crew. They are all here, they are all alive. You are the first to wake, but the others will follow soon. Maria's eyes filled with tears. The moisture leaked down her face in a way that found fascinating from a biological perspective. Humans apparently expelled liquid from their eyes as a response to strong emotions. I thought we were going to die, she said. When the engine blew and we lost power, I thought that was it. But Captain Hayes said we had to try. He said we couldn't give up. He said someone might find us. He was right, replied. Someone did find you, and now you are safe. Over the next several days, the rest of the crew awakened one by one. Each reaction was different, but they all shared a common theme of disbelief and gratitude. Dr. Samuel, the ship's physician, immediately asked to help care for his, working alongside despite the obvious difficulties in communication. Lieutenant Martinez, the pilot, wanted to know everything about ship design, fascinated by the differences from what he knew. Specialist Karen Young, a geologist, asked endless questions about the worlds the gentle Dawn had visited. And Lucy Marsh, the youngest, simply asked if she could call her mother. Captain Daniel Hayes was the last to wake, had kept him under longest deliberately, wanting to make sure he had fully recovered before facing the shock of their situation. When his eyes finally opened, they immediately scanned the room, taking in every detail before settling on. My crew, he said. His voice was calm, steady, the voice of a man used to command. Are they all safe? They are all safe, confirmed. They have been asking for you. Hayes closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them again, they were wet with the same liquid had observed in the others. Thank you, he said simply. Whoever you are, whatever you are, thank you. The meeting between Captain Hayes and Commander took place in a small conference room that had been adjusted to accommodate both species. The gravity was set to a compromise level that was uncomfortable for both of them, and the atmosphere was maintained at the edge of what each could tolerate. It was not ideal, but it worked. Hayes sat on one side of the table, still weak from his long sleep, but determined to represent his people properly. Sat on the other side, her forearms folded in a posture of formal respect. Captain Hayes began, I want you to understand the situation. My people, though, are members of a galactic council that includes hundreds of species from across this region of space. The council has strict protocols for dealing with unknown civilizations, especially those from worlds classified as challenging. Challenging, Hayes asked. Hesitated. Your planet Earth is classified as a Class III. The conditions there are considered extremely hostile by galactic standards. The gravity is high. The atmosphere is corrosive. The climate is violent. The wildlife is aggressive. Most beings in the galaxy cannot survive on your world without extensive protection. Hayes was quiet for a moment, processing this information. Then, unexpectedly, he laughed. It was a strange sound to ears, a kind of barking noise that came from deep in his chest. Sorry, he said, seeing his confused expression. It's just funny to hear someone describe Earth as to us, it's just home. Sure, it has its problems. Hurricanes, earthquakes, wildfires, that sort of thing, but it's also beautiful. Green forests, blue oceans, mountains covered in snow. We love it. You love a world that is trying to kill you. It's not trying to kill us specifically. It's just being a planet. We adapted to it. We figured out how to survive the cold and the heat and the storms. We built shelters and developed agriculture and created technology to make our lives easier. That's what intelligent beings do, isn't it? They solve problems. Consider this. Most intelligent beings evolve on worlds that are gentler. They do not need to solve as many problems as you did. Some in the galaxy believe that your difficult environment made you aggressive and dangerous. Aggressive? Hayes shook his head. We've got our share of conflicts, I won't deny that. But we've also got music and art and philosophy and science. We've got people who dedicate their lives to helping others, doctors and teachers and firefighters. We've got parents who would die for their children and friends who would die for each other. He leaned forward, looking directly into his 4 eyes. We are not monsters, Commander. We are just trying to make sense of the universe, same as everyone else. Then why did you come out here? Why did you build ships to travel between stars? Hayes smiled. Because we looked up at the night sky and wondered what was out there. because we dreamed of meeting other beings like ourselves, intelligent creatures from other worlds, because we wanted to know that we weren't alone. His smile faded slightly. We've been asking that question for thousands of years. Are we alone in the universe? Is there anyone else out there? And now, thanks to you, we finally have an answer. You are not alone, said quietly. There are many others, hundreds of species across the galaxy. Some of them are peaceful, some of them are not, but you are not alone. That's the most wonderful thing I've ever heard, Hayes said. His voice was thick with emotion. When I was a kid, I used to lie on my back in my backyard and stare at the stars for hours, imagining what might be up there. Now I know, and it's better than anything I ever imagined. The days that followed were filled with intense activity. The human crew recovered quickly, their bodies adapting to the lower gravity and slightly different atmosphere with remarkable speed. Within a week, most of them were moving around the gentle dawn freely, learning about their rescuers and sharing information about themselves. Maria spent most of her time in the engine room, fascinated by propulsion technology. She worked alongside the engineering crew, asking questions and taking notes, her mind constantly calculating how human technology might be improved based on what she was learning. Samuel set up a collaborative research program with comparing human and biology. The differences were significant, but there were also surprising similarities. Both species breathed oxygen, though in different concentrations. Both species required liquid water to survive. Both species reproduced sexually and cared for their young. Found these commonalities reassuring, evidence that intelligent life might follow similar patterns throughout the universe. Martinez became fast friends with, bonding over their shared love of navigation and exploration. They spent hours together on the bridge, Martinez teaching about human astronomy and explaining the coordinate system. Martinez was particularly delighted to learn that humans had identified many of the same star patterns that used for navigation, though they had given them different names. Karen Young convinced to take her on virtual tour of the planets the gentle dawn had surveyed. She was like a child in a candy store, exclaiming over every new world, asking endless questions about geology and climate and the possibility of life. Found her enthusiasm infectious and began to see her own work through new eyes. And Lucy Marsh spent her time with everyone, moving from group to group, soaking up knowledge like a sponge. She was particularly close to, of all people. The stern security chief had been suspicious of the humans at first, but something about Lucy's innocent curiosity broke through his defenses. He found himself teaching her about history and customs, surprised by how much he enjoyed her company. But not everyone was happy about the situation. The message from the Galactic Council arrived exactly 2 weeks after the rescue. High Arbiter himself delivered it, his crystalline image appearing in the gentle dawn's communication center. "Commander," he said, his voice carrying tones of concern, "we have reviewed your reports and the data you have transmitted. The Council is divided." "Divided, High Arbiter." "There are those who believe you acted correctly. The humans appear to be intelligent, curious, and cooperative. Your interactions with them have been positive. Some on the Council see potential for a beneficial relationship." "And the others?" Flickered with orange light. "The others are afraid. The humans come from a Class III world. Their evolutionary history is one of constant conflict and survival. They developed intelligence not through peaceful cooperation, but through competition and predation. Their recorded history is filled with wars, violence, and destruction. Some on the Council believe they represent a fundamental threat to galactic stability. With respect, High Arbiter, you could say the same about many species. There were violent conquerors before they joined the Council. They nearly destroyed their own planet before achieving peace. Even your own people, the Crystallans, fought a devastating civil war in your early history. Should all of them have been eliminated before they had a chance to grow? Was quiet for a long moment. "You make a fair point, Commander, but the situations are not entirely comparable. Those species had time to develop in isolation, to learn from their mistakes, to mature before they encountered others. The humans are encountering us at a much earlier stage of their development. We do not know how they will react." "Then perhaps we should find out," suggested. "Let them speak for themselves. Let them address the Council directly." That is an unusual request. We do not normally allow unknown species to address the Council. These are unusual circumstances. The humans are already here, already in contact with us. We cannot undo that. The question is what we do next. I believe they deserve the chance to make their case. Considered this for a long time. Finally, he nodded, his crystals flickering with blue light. Very well. I will arrange for a hearing before the full council, but I must warn you, Commander, not everyone will be as willing to listen as I am. Some of my colleagues have already made up their minds. You and your human friends will need to be very persuasive. The hearing was scheduled for 3 days later. Captain Hayes prepared carefully, working with and to understand council protocols and the concerns of the various species. He learned about the different factions, the old alliances and rivalries, the historical events that had shaped galactic politics. It was a lot to absorb in a short time, but Hayes was a quick study. The night before the hearing, Hayes asked to speak with privately. They met in the same conference room where they had first talked, the gravity and atmosphere still set to their uncomfortable compromise. I want to thank you, Hayes said. Not just for saving us, though that would be enough, but for believing in us, for giving us a chance. I have not done anything extraordinary, replied. I simply did what any decent being would do. No, you did more than that. You could have left us to die. You could have reported our location and let the military handle us. You could have treated us like threats instead of people. But you didn't. You chose to see us as we are, not as your classifications said we should be. That took courage. Was silent for a moment. Then she spoke, her voice soft. When I was young, my mother told me a story. She said that long ago, before they had achieved peace, we were much like you, aggressive, territorial, constantly fighting among ourselves. Many other species looked at us and saw only monsters, but a few looked closer and saw potential. They gave us a chance to prove ourselves, to grow beyond our violent past. If they had not done so, my species might not exist today. So you're paying it forward, Hayes said. I do not understand that expression. It means doing a kindness for someone because someone once did a kindness for you, passing the gift along. Considered this. Yes, I suppose I am. The galaxy gave my people a chance. Now I want to give your people the same chance. Whether the council agrees or not, I believe it is the right thing to do. Then we'll just have to convince them, Hayes said with a smile. Humans are pretty good at persuading people when we need to be. The council chamber was enormous, a vast circular space filled with representatives from over 200 species. Each delegation sat in its own section, arranged by seniority and importance. The crystallines occupied the central position, with High Arbiter presiding from a raised platform. Captain Hayes stood alone in the center of the floor, surrounded by beings of every shape and size imaginable. Some had multiple limbs, some had no limbs at all. Some breathed gases he had never heard of, some did not breathe at all. Some were so alien that his eyes could not quite focus on them, his brain unable to process their forms. It was the most overwhelming experience of his life. But he was not afraid. Representatives of the Galactic Council, he began, his voice carrying clearly through the translation systems. My name is Daniel Hayes. I'm a human from the planet Earth. My crew and I are probably the first of our kind you have ever met in person. I know that many of you are afraid of us. I understand why. We come from a world that you consider deadly, from a species with a history of violence. You look at us and see threats. He paused, letting his words sink in. Then he continued. But I want to tell you what I see when I look at my own species. I see farmers who wake before dawn to grow food for strangers they will never meet. I see teachers who spend their lives helping children learn, asking nothing in return but the joy of passing on knowledge. I see doctors who fight against disease and death, not for profit or glory, but because they cannot bear to see others suffer. I see artists who create beauty for no reason except that beauty matters. I see scientists who dedicate their lives to understanding the universe, driven by nothing but curiosity. Pretty words, interrupted Ambassador of the Hegemony. He was a large being with scaly skin and a mouthful of sharp teeth. His species had once been conquerors, though they had supposedly reformed. But your history tells a different story. Wars, genocides, environmental destruction. Your kind has proven again and again that it cannot be trusted. You're right, Hayes admitted. We have done terrible things. We have hurt each other in ways that shame us. Our history is full of cruelty and stupidity and waste. But that's not all we are. That's not all we can be. Every generation we try to be better than the ones who came before. We fall short sometimes. We make mistakes. But we keep trying. That's what humans do. We don't give up. And if we give you the chance to join our community? Asked another delegate, a floating mass of luminescent gas that Hayes did not recognize. What guarantee do we have that you will not turn on us, that your aggressive nature will not eventually lead you to war? Hayes thought about this carefully before answering. I can't give you a guarantee. Nobody can predict the future, but I can tell you this. My crew and I were rescued by Commander and the crew of the Gentle Dawn. They found us dying in the cold and the dark, and they chose to save us. They could have left us. They could have let us die, but they didn't. They showed us kindness when they had every reason to show us fear, and that kindness has changed us. It has shown us what the galaxy can be at its best. I want to be part of that. I want my species to be part of that, and I believe we can be if you give us the chance. The debate continued for many hours. Representatives argued back and forth, some supporting the humans, others opposed. Hayes answered every question honestly, acknowledging the flaws of his species while emphasizing their potential for growth and change. His crew members were called upon to speak as well, each of them sharing their own perspectives. Maria talked about human engineering, the creativity and ingenuity that had allowed them to overcome their planet's challenges. Samuel discussed human medicine, the drive to heal and help that motivated so many of his colleagues. Martinez spoke about exploration, the restless curiosity that pushed humans to seek out new worlds and new experiences. Karen Young described the beauty of Earth, trying to help the Council understand why humans loved their home. And Lucy Marsh, the youngest of them all, told a simple story. She talked about her mother and father, her brothers and sisters, the small town where she had grown up. She talked about her dreams of seeing the stars, of meeting other intelligent beings, of being part of something larger than herself. She talked about the fear she had felt when the engine exploded and the power failed, and the hope that had sustained her through the long darkness of hibernation. I didn't know if anyone would find us, she said, her voice quiet but clear. But Captain Hayes told us to hold on, and we did. We believed that the universe was good, that somewhere out there were beings who would help us if they could. And we were right. You're that beings. You're the answer to our hope. Please don't make us wrong for believing in you. When she finished, the chamber was silent. Even Ambassador had no response. The vote took place the next day. It was closer than would have liked. Many species remained skeptical of the humans, unwilling to trust a species with such a violent history. But in the end, the motion passed. Humanity was granted provisional membership in the galactic community. There were conditions, of course. Human expansion would be limited until they proved they could be trusted. Human vessels would be monitored. Human colonies would be supervised. Any sign of aggression would result in immediate sanctions. It was not full membership, not yet, but it was a start. When the decision was announced, the human crew gathered in the Gentle Dawn's observation lounge, watching the stars through the wide windows. They were quiet, each lost in their own thoughts. The weight of what had happened was still sinking in. We did it, Maria said finally. We actually did it. We're part of the galactic community. It doesn't feel real, agreed. A few weeks ago we were dying in space. Now we're ambassadors for the entire human race. Not ambassadors, Hayes corrected. Just representatives. The real ambassadors will come later, proper diplomats with proper training. We're just the ones who happen to be in the right place at the right time. Or the wrong place at the wrong time, Samuel joked, depending on how you look at it. They all laughed at that, the tension breaking slightly. Then Lucy spoke, her voice thoughtful. What do you think will happen when we get back to Earth, when we tell them what we found? Hayes considered the question. I think it will change everything. Everything we thought we knew about our place in the universe, about what's possible and what isn't. People will be scared at first, but then they'll be excited. They'll want to learn everything about the other species, visit other worlds, share our culture, and discover new ones. That's how humans are. We see something new and we can't help but explore it. Some people won't like it, Karen said quietly. Some people will want to keep things the way they were. They'll be afraid of change. Some people are always afraid of change, Hayes replied. But they don't get to stop it. Change happens whether we want it to or not. All we can do is try to make sure it's change for the better. Commander entered the lounge, her 4 arms folded in her formal posture. The humans turned to greet her, and she allowed herself a small smile. I have just received word from High Arbiter, she said. The Gentle Dawn has been assigned to escort you back to your... We will be the first vessel to visit Earth. I thought you weren't allowed to enter systems without special clearance, Maria said. Normally we are not, but these are special circumstances. The Council wants to establish diplomatic relations as quickly as possible. And besides, smile widened slightly, I volunteered. I want to see this world of yours. I want to understand how beings as kind and curious as you could come from such a dangerous place. You might be disappointed, Hayes warned. Earth isn't always kind and curious. We have our share of problems. Every world has problems. The question is how you face them. Based on what I have seen of your species, I believe you face them with courage and determination. She paused, then added, and hope. You never seem to lose hope, even when things are at their worst. That is a rare quality in the galaxy. It's all we have sometimes, Lucy said. When everything else fails, hope is what keeps us going. Then perhaps that is what you can teach us, said. We are cautious by nature. We plan for every contingency, prepare for every disaster. But sometimes we forget to hope. Sometimes we forget that the universe can surprise us with good things as well as bad. She looked out at the stars. Finding you was a good surprise, the best surprise I have had in a long time. The journey to Earth took several weeks. During that time, the humans prepared messages for their families and their governments, explaining what had happened and what was coming. And her crew prepared reports for the Council, documenting their observations of human behavior and culture. Everyone was busy, everyone was anxious, everyone was excited. When the Gentle Dawn finally entered the Sol system, the human crew gathered at the observation windows again. They watched as their home star grew larger and brighter, a yellow point of light that had guided their ancestors for thousands of years. They watched as the planets came into view, Jupiter with its swirling storms, Saturn with its magnificent rings, Mars with its red deserts. And then Earth appeared, a small blue marble floating in the darkness. There it is, Hayes whispered, home. The planet was exactly as they remembered. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds swirling across the surface. It looked peaceful from up here, beautiful and fragile and precious. It was hard to believe that such a gentle-looking world was classified as by galactic standards. It's lovely, said standing beside Hayes. I understand now why you love it. It's not perfect, Hayes admitted. We've made a lot of mistakes, done a lot of damage, but we're trying to fix things. We're trying to make it better for the generations who will come after us. That is all any species can do, replied. Try to leave the universe a little better than they found it. The first contact proceeded smoothly. The Earth governments had been warned ahead of time by the messages from the Horizon's Edge crew, so they were not caught completely off guard. There was fear, of course, and suspicion, and the usual political disagreements about how to respond. But there was also wonder and excitement and hope. They were welcomed cautiously but warmly. They met with world leaders and scientists and ordinary people. They answered questions about the galaxy and shared what they knew about other species. They tried their best to help humanity understand what they were joining and what would be expected of them. And through it all, Captain Hayes and his crew served as intermediaries, helping to bridge the gap between two very different civilizations. They had started their mission as explorers, seeking to uncover the secrets of the universe. They had ended up as ambassadors, representing their entire species to the rest of the galaxy. On the last night before the Gentle Dawn was scheduled to depart, Hayes and stood together on a hillside overlooking a quiet valley. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and red and purple. Birds sang in the trees, and somewhere in the distance, a river burbled over stones. Thank you, Hayes said, for everything. You do not need to thank me again, replied. I was simply doing my duty. No, you were doing more than that. You were being brave. You saw beings that your culture taught you to fear, and you chose to see them as people instead. That's not duty, that's something better. Was quiet for a moment, then she spoke, her voice soft. When I was young, I dreamed of exploring the galaxy. I wanted to discover new worlds, meet new species, learn new things. But as I grew older, I became cautious. I followed protocols and procedures. I played it safe. And then I found you dying in the darkness, and something in me remembered what it felt like to be brave. Maybe that's what we can give each other, Hayes suggested. Humans and all the other species in the galaxy. Courage, hope, the reminder that the universe is bigger and stranger and more wonderful than we can imagine. I would like that, Sid. I would like that very much. They stood together in silence as the sun set, two beings from different worlds sharing a moment of connection. Above them, the first stars began to appear, pinpoints of light scattered across the darkening sky. Somewhere out there were worlds neither of them had ever seen, mysteries waiting to be explored, friends waiting to be made. The future was uncertain. There would be challenges ahead, difficulties and disagreements and misunderstandings. Not everyone would be as accepting as and her crew. Not every encounter would end as well as this one. But that was okay. That was how growth happened, through struggle and effort and the willingness to keep trying even when things got hard. Hayes looked up at the stars and smiled. His species was not alone anymore. They were part of something vast and ancient and ongoing. They had been given a chance to prove themselves, to show the galaxy what humans could be at their best. And they would not waste it. The end.